Everyone, this is the meeting of the Medfield Board of Water and Sewerage. The date is November 16th, 2021. It's about 9:30, and this meeting is being recorded. So we have some guests today. We do have just a couple of admin items I want to accomplish with Christian, because they're we seem to be putting
out a little bit.
right. Just a couple of items, and then we'll dive into the bulk of the subject matter for today. So we currently just have two prepared minutes that need to be for drafts that need to be reviewed. The other ones, I think we need to talk about how we're going to get those done. I'm not sure. Nick, you were assigned to that, or we're just going to go back and should I just go back and read the recordings from last time and write the minutes myself?
Up to you, however you want to proceed.
All right, well, we can figure that out later. Okay. All right, so the meeting minutes from 16th June. I actually had no comments on this at all. This looks fine as written.
I didn't have any comments either. It's fine.
Okay.
I didn't even print it out. I was so confident.
So is there a motion to accept them?
I'll move to accept as drafted.
I'll second that. All in favor of passing the 16 June 21
Aye.
meeting minutes as passed? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay. Next one is the 21 August meeting minutes. This one had it's quite a bit. Well, first it wasn't. It was called the Enterprise Fund. It was actually it was called the 08 July Enterprise Fund, but it was actually the 12th August Medfield Board of Water and Sewerage meeting minutes. I think the agreements we actually in this meeting we agreed that we were going to use 2.25% interest rate for 20-year bond as an assumption in the water rate model, and that we agreed to use the filtration project costs of 11.5 million in the rate model, and that we agreed that the water rates would increase by 4% across all tiers, and sewer rates will increase by 3% for all tiers starting the billing period of in April. So it was just some of the specifics of that weren't captured.
Okay. I thought we caught most of that. I'm not sure how much of that was missing in the version I read. I thought these are your edits.
Yeah.
Okay, it was just up here. It was more of it was caught in the actual.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah, but I didn't pay much attention to the agreements at the top, but. And everything you just said, I agree with it. Consistent with my notes. So.
Okay. So you're happy with these amendments?
I'm happy with those minutes as.
Okay. Okay. So it's motion from the floor to accept the meeting minutes for 12 August 2021 as amended in the revision that I presented.
I'll so move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes as amended. Okay. Got to do the other ones we didn't even read. Ouch. Okay. I don't believe we have any holdover action minutes because we don't have the minutes from the last meeting. Let's you.
I think you're right. Through my notes, if there's anything that I didn't volunteer for, I'll let people know. We didn't have any holdovers from the prior meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about being ready to work on the capital plan at this meeting, but I don't think that made the agenda, so maybe that gets pushed to our next meeting.
Yeah. So there are no holdover actions to act on. Okay. Two. All right, we can go on to the next one. So we have some guests. We have the Board of Health joining us. It's been in the back of my mind that I wanted to establish at least or create an invitation for the Board of Health to participate in our meetings on a quarterly basis or something like that, where there's subject matter to cover or not. I think our board, I think we should accommodate that, once a quarter would be a good idea to extend the invitation or just have them attend if they have certain subject matter, or if there's nothing, then they can just, I just felt like I wanted to be a little bit more connected to them, and I wanted to put that up there.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay. So in the last year, there's been some of these intersections, I think that we probably would have benefited from meeting with them on a more regular basis. One of them is we now have a rhythm for testing for PFAS from our wells. Mo, can you update us on the protocols for the different wells for PFAS?
So everything's on our website as far as all the updates that when we get in. Dave gets them right from the lab. As soon as he gets them in, we get them out onto the website through Nick. Right now, wells 1 and 2, they're located on Route 109 by the Charles River there, by Tresca. They're part of a blend, so the 1 and 2 are together, and their reading is 17.6, which are, as you know, our MCL is at 20, so we're still below the MCL for that location. But that's been running. It's actually lower than what it was. It was in 19.1. Now it's at 17.6. So things fluctuate a little bit, but it's actually lower, which is better for us. Well, 3 and 4, we're at non-detect, and it's been non-detect for a while now for all our sampling. I think the only time we had anything in there was the first sample, which could have been a wrong sample, because we had 3 samples since then, and all the ones that for those two since the initial one has been non-detect. Well 6, which is one of our main producing wells over towards the Sherburne line off of 27, that's running at 5.2, and that runs anywhere between 4.7, 5.2 or non-detect. Most of the time it's non-detect, but there are some sampling that we get. So 5.2 would be the highest we see there, which is
Okay. And for all the wells, are we on a monthly program
We
for all
are.
the wells?
not monthly for all the wells. So
Just the ones that are above
just
10,
the
right?
ones that are above 10. We're right now, when we started it was well 3 and wells 1 and 2. Those are the only wells that we have to do monthly sampling for. Everything else we do quarterly sampling for.
Okay, so once it gets above 10,
Yep.
then you're on the hook for monthly.
Until
Right.
we show enough progress. I'm not sure what DEP is looking for, but they'll let us know when we can take these off a monthly
Yeah,
schedule.
at some point, then we might have to address
I
that.
want to see a year's worth of data, so sometime.
Okay.
We started in February, so sometime after January.
Okay,
It'll be.
right.
Sooner
So
than
then
later.
they'll see if that
Right.
first data point on well 3 was anomalous.
Correct.
Because if it becomes basically the first point is measurable and then it's basically non-detect for the rest of the year, that would be statistically anomalous. Okay,
Correct.
okay. Any questions from the Board of Health on this sort of protocol or anything? Melissa? I'm not sure if I can hear you. 1 second. I think you might be muted. Oh, no, here you
Sorry,
go.
here I am. Hi, guys. Thanks for having us. I guess my question is, what happens if you get above the 20-point mark?
Yeah, that was gonna be my question too.
Thanks.
After the- It's gonna
We've worked
average-
together a long time.
It's got to average above the 20, not with the previous readings that we've had. So it's not just if we go over 20 for the first time that it sparks anything.
It's a 4-period.
I believe it is.
It's
So,
a 4-period. I think it's a 4-period moving average.
so if we do that, say we have to get 25 consistently, and then we end up over 20 average together. Then we have to do a public notification, have to notify DEP right away, and then kind of DEP meets with us to discuss how we're going to move forward. So we have a plan to take care of whether we, put in safeguards at those particular pumping stations, or we shut them off for the time period until we figure out what we're going to do. Right now, we're looking at doing studies for those pumping stations to kind of figure out a plan of how to move forward. So,
Yeah, we commissioned EPG, our engineering company, to look at the specific wells and it's basically to anticipate if we had to do some sort of treatment or otherwise to do a site assessment. What would this look like? How big? How much space do we need? Just to begin the preliminary. I wouldn't even call it a preliminary design.
it's a
more
feasibility study.
feasibility study.
And just to make everyone understand that, we used to have a very high threshold for PFAS. And when DEP came out with these new regulations, 20 parts per trillion is it's a very small amount. And being under that is a good thing for the town. Many communities, almost a good percentage of the communities in Massachusetts are over that 20, and they're taking proper actions, but a lot of them are extremely high. So, we've been non-detect for many years, and I think, with it dropping to 20 parts per trillion, pretty much every community is going to show something, and so we're in good shape for the time being.
Yeah, and Massachusetts is probably one of the most stringent specifications that's out there. When they look at PFAS, it's a family of hundreds of thousands of chemicals, and they've chosen 6 specifically. And this is called PFAS 6. They look at the measurements of each of these 6, and they take the sum of those 6. That's what they call PFAS 6. So I'm not saying that they're assuming the same risk profile, but it's just numerically how they're trying to rack and stack this data. So add all 6 of these measurements together, and they put a threshold of 20 on it, and that's their way of approaching this. That's not the common way that it's done across the United States. And actually parts of the United States that don't really have this sort of specific measuring protocol, as well as creating the thresholds. And some that are in the 50 to 70. And those are 50 to 70 for specific PFAS chemicals themselves. So it is, in my opinion, it's one of the more stringent ones that's out there. So, but it's what DEP is, they set the tone for how we deliver services. So,
It's not just your opinion, it's been reported as Massachusetts is one of the most stringent in the country. I've read the articles.
Oh,
So it's not just your opinion, it's actually, it's been reported as such, so. You're reinforced.
Yeah, no, you
It's a
just
good
sound
thing.
like you
It's a good
just,
thing.
yeah, you just sound like
Yeah.
your TV personality right there.
That's just what I was going for.
Yeah, perfect. So,
Is the, just as a follow-up to that, it sounds like Medfield has no current major concerns with PFAS because of the levels we've been detecting are super low, which is excellent. I guess just in terms of general information about the issue, in the places where it's high, or if there was a situation where it's high, are there actual mitigation strategies like filtration or something, or do you just have to stop using that source?
well, what's in a way fortunate is those specific wells that are measuring higher are our smallest wells. They're our smallest production wells. We tend to turn them on. Well, once we get this, when we redevelop 3 and 4, that is going to be,
Seasonal.
well, it'll be a little bit more even weighted between well 6, which is our big producer, and the 3 and 4 area. And then 1 and 2, you can almost think of as a peak seasonal demand where we would use it. So as an overall blended contribution, it would be lower. There are the sort of generally accepted methods of treatment are absorption technologies of activated carbon. And, that's pretty tried and true. There are other methods, a little bit more esoteric, but they still work as well, but they are not as hydraulically efficient. So use of membranes. Basically, the part of the water space that I come from, yeah, there are ways of treating it, but those are not very hydraulically efficient. And that absorption through very basic activated carbon has been the sort of go-to model for some towns. And that's also some towns, when they treat for PFAS, they're also deciding they've got other things to deal with that are there. They might have elevated levels of X or elevated Y, particles of Y, and they'll use a single technology that takes care of all of them. So for wells 1 and 2, the only thing that we see being treated for, if we ever had to, would probably be PFAS. So fortunately, it's a smaller production part of our portfolio.
And I just want to make it clear that, we do have readings there at 1 and 2, and it's not that we have no concern. It's just that we are taking steps with the feasibility study and to see how, to make sure that we have plans in place if we do get to that point where we need to take action. So it's not that we're comfortable with any kind of readings in our system, but we are taking the steps to make sure we have a plan in place. So I just didn't want you to think that we're taking for granted that those numbers are below 20. So
Yeah, and also this feasibility study, we're
3 and 4 we already did.
well, we already did for 3 and 4. So if we ever had to do something to even the new filtration system, the building was built so that, well, in a home renovation project, almost think as a bump out. So we already know we already made accommodations for where the flanges will be. Flange breaks are already there. There's a T that's already there in case we had to do something. So it would be just designing the building, and pouring the foundation. So the site would be
For expansion.
Yeah, the site would be ready
Yeah.
for that sort of expansion. So that
Although so far indications are that that's
Right.
not a problem.
that's actually the one
allocation.
place, yeah. So the one place that we're most accommodated, we have all the space, and we've accommodated for is the place where it's non-detect. So,
Go
and-
us.
right, exactly.
I
Go
think
us, right?
the short answer to the question about treatment is it's not simple. It's if it was easy to just throw a filter on the backside of the well, I think it would be a pretty easy decision for us to just go ahead and do it, It's so actually making the decision to treat is something that we want to make sure that we have a really clear understanding of what we have, of what's required of us, and of what kind of removal we can actually achieve on a consistent basis. So it's not something to just dive into. It's something it's prudent for us to keep gathering data and getting smarter. And in the meantime, doing the background checks on what kind of options we have if we need it.
Thanks.
Okay. So PFAS. Something else I have here, current water chemicals and treatment. Just maybe as a review, Medfield currently adds chlorine to our water system to control biological growth within the system. We also adjust the pH of the system, brings the pH a couple of tenths of a pH unit so that the water itself is not aggressive and we don't have sort of premature corrosion of pipes in both the distribution network as well as in homes. So I just wanted to, if the Board of Health didn't know that, we're already adding some chemicals to our system which are generally accepted practices already. And it's something of a lead into the subject of I know that I hear that the Board of Health has some ideas around enhancing the water quality for health benefits. So I wanted to open the floor to the Board of Health to go over matters like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. We've been having our head in the pandemic for quite a while, and as we're that's starting to get more under control, and we get getting our head above water on that. No pun intended. We're starting to look at some other issues that have been a little bit on the back burner. And one of those, Melissa has been sort of spearheading, which is, the issue about fluoridation of the water for dental health. And, as you know, in Massachusetts, it's like up to the towns to do it. And Medfield doesn't. And so I'd say we're exploring, the possibility of changing that. And right now, maybe partly in an information gathering phase, and meeting with you, I think, is helpful in part to find out, what are the implications from a infrastructure point of view, or a cost point of view, or from a water and sewage point of view of, if we were to change to a model where we were adding fluoride to the water. And maybe, Melissa, I don't know if you wanted to, I know you, I just wanted to introduce that, but did you
Sure.
want
Yeah. So again, this is sort of I'm passionate about this subject matter. Growing up in town, we didn't have fluoride, and then moving back to town, we still don't have fluoride. And I think the last time the town had a public discussion about this was probably, maybe a half a decade ago. So I think it's very important that we do reintroduce this matter. I have a YouTube video that's 5 minutes long explaining my point of view if you're interested. Otherwise, I'm happy to take questions.
Well, can we fire up that video from here?
I can share my screen also. I don't know which is easier.
That would probably be, yeah, why don't we shoot for that?
All right, thanks, Nick.
just remember to click on that part to share the audio, computer.
Thank
audio.
you for the reminder. I appreciate that. Let's see. Where am I at here? Open this up. And then more, hold on. Sorry. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this very important testimony. Today, I'm here to talk about water fluorination of the Medfield's community water system. My name is Melissa Coughlin. I'm a longtime resident of Medfield, Mass, a 20-year registered nurse at the Brigham and Women's Hospital, a 2-year member of our Board of Health, and a mother to 3 young children in this community. Why don't we have fluoride in our water? I would argue most members have never really asked themselves this question. Perhaps you thought of it when your child's pediatrician or dentist discussed daily fluoride additives. Giving fluoride drops can cause fluorosis, yet not giving supplements causes cavities. So how do we find the sweet spot? Title 16, Chapter 3, Section 8C of the Massachusetts legislation gives local boards of health the authority to advocate for adding fluoride to municipal water sources, because boards of health, of course, appreciate dental health of the people in their community. Just to give you a little bit of facts about our statistics in town, we have a very low naturally occurring rate of fluoride in our water. At last tested, it was 0.058 ppm in comparison to the level of 0.7, which is recommended for reducing tooth decay. And this level is endorsed by the MWRA, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Dental Associations, and the EPA, just for point of reference, 74.6% and 70.4% of residents are on community water systems receiving fluoride. Healthy People 2030 is a huge initiative by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And one of the goals in this decade is to increase the portion of citizens to 77.1% who have this suggested amount of fluoride in their water. So how does fluoride work? As we know, it causes the bone on the teeth surfaces to remineralize and prevent cavities from forming. It also is very important to infants' teeth that have yet to erupt. Therefore, adding fluoride to the water system is one of the most valuable ways to counteract tooth decay. It was named as one of CDC's greatest health achievements of the 20th century. So I grew up in town. I've had years worth of cavities and oral surgeries, and I see my children following my footsteps. Of course, local dentists and pediatricians are familiar with our level of fluoride and have to tailor the care to ensure proper supplemental intake. Despite all of these research studies that have proven the safety, people do continue to have what we call maybe fluoridation hesitation. And this is a range of concerns from speculation that it causes cancer to perhaps cognitive delay. In researching these rebuttals, I had come across many scholarly articles that do not show any potential relationship with community water fluoridation with osteosarcoma, developmental delays, or bone diseases. In fact, the EPA maintains the recommended fluoride levels in a 6-year review. So this also shows the cost-saving benefits of adding fluoride to the water, in addition to preventing cavities. In summary, you see that the oral health in the United States has improved. However, we still have more work to do, and this fluorination is the most cost-effective way to disseminate fluoride to everyone in a community, regardless of age, income, or education. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this public health initiative, and thank you to the members of our public health community for your time and consideration. I hope you see the multiple benefits of water fluorination and embrace its necessary addition. Ideally, I would like to look to leadership of the Commonwealth to implement this best practice health policy statewide. But for now, let's start with the local water that comes out of our faucets and make this long overdue change. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at the email address listed here. And here's some references for your reference. I hope you all have a wonderful day and take into consideration this very important initiative. Hi.
Okay, thanks.
I wrote down fluoridation.
So that's the long and short of it. And in addition to that, there's been a few other points that I've added to the PowerPoint, just the local communities that are within our proximity that have fluorination in the water, and it's sort of endless. Like I could read them to you, but I'm sure you can also find them online. It's Dedham, Framingham, Franklin, Holliston, Medford, Medway, Dedham. Holliston, Medford, Medway, Millis, Natick, Needham, Newton, Walpole, Wellesley, Westwood. So I think it's time to, maybe discuss this. And as Steve said, what would be the next steps? And it seems the next steps would be, we need to figure out how implementation would work. We would need to, there's a few routes, notifying the town and getting input, or putting it on the next special town meeting or town meeting
I think
agenda to open up discussion.
a meeting would be for, it's a part of the capital plan.
I can't hear you guys now. I don't know. Steve, can you? Did I do something to the volume?
Yeah, I can still hear him.
No. Okay.
Okay,
Can you hear us, Melissa? Nothing.
anything?
I don't know what's going on there. It might have to do with, we need to turn the sound on for the video, to turn the sound back off for,
Yeah, maybe.
you know,
Yeah, maybe that's it.
under a text.
Yeah, Steve, if you want, maybe want to text her. I don't have her number if
Sure.
you do.
Yeah.
But while we're working on that, I think to me, I'm actually a very easy sell on this. It makes a lot of sense to me. And seen the same thing with my kids, so it's a challenge to manage. I would want to have a better handle on, I think the three things that were asked, what changes in our infrastructure to do it, what changes in our cost profile to consistently kind of maintain it, but both on a capital cost or initial equipment purchase cost. Maybe it's not even capital, I don't know how much it is. And then, kind of the continuing operating cost. Does it affect monitoring requirements, testing requirements, all those things? Just understanding the implication that way, so that we can build it into expectations. And I wouldn't think that there would be any downstream impact as far as our sewer system goes, but I guess it's a question that should be asked rather than not having been asked.
Mhm.
The other thing for me is, it hadn't occurred to me that this could be, a cancer causing agent or something, but it does occur to me that if it's not properly dosed, overdosing can be, I know that can be a problem. And how difficult is it to make sure that we're doing it right and we're not putting the public at risk with, pardon the expression, but kind of a sloppy implementation of a
Yeah.
plan. So I want to make sure I understand those things before we were to propose.
Yeah,
forward.
no, I support the concept. I think operationalizing it is pretty easy. I mean, the sodium monosulfate, fluoride, it's a very soluble, adding it through a chemical, just a metering pump. It's about this big and its tank is probably less than 300 gallons or something like that. So dosing it out, it's a pretty low dosage to begin with. Having it, integrated to the flow rate of the pumps itself. So
SCADA system.
yeah, through a SCADA system or even locally, even through a local PLC, it doesn't have to walk all the way up to the SCADA, but depends how controlling it is normal parlance. I don't know if there's online monitoring. There might be sometimes for certain constituents that are dissolved in water, you can monitor it continuously. I don't know if fluoride's one of them, or we just pull samples on a regular basis and have them, sent out until we find the right harmony. But it's pretty, the fluoride is going to be very soluble in the water. It's going to be easy for it to be in the state that's usable and consumable. This is to make this happen. This is probably a 10 by 10 foot area where you have a tank for storing the sodium fluoride, and there's a metering pump, and there's probably a backup with that, and so it's not.
You've already got telemetry at the wells anyway. So
Right,
you
exactly,
can add
and this
more
would be
to
done
it.
at each specific well, so we
Right.
wouldn't be able to do it at a tank or other places because the way our system is set up, we
Right.
distribute, local like that. So we would do this at well 6. We would do this someplace at well 1 and 2, and then somewhere in the new building in 3 and 4. So
So
I'm sure there are design standards, and when we move forward with it, there'll be some things that need to be taken into account, but it's not a big deal.
So I wonder if we could maybe ask Mo to take a task
We
to,
started the conversation after I looked at the.
To what?
to come back to us with a little more
They've had experience in other communities with
with EPG, is it, or
EPG.
Okay, so you've asked CPG to sort of look into the feasibility of this. Okay,
to come back to us with some projected costs.
Okay.
On both the initial install side plus the operating side. Just
They had different comments,
Help us to
initial
think through
comments
this.
on, other communities. Some communities embrace it, some communities are trying to get it out of the water, some communities, it's a mixed bag.
It's not all gumdrops and lollipops. So I'm opposed to it. I'm gonna come out and say it. I don't think we should be adding anything to the water that doesn't improve the quality of the water itself. Why are we adding something that's just a health thing? And now she doesn't want it, she has no choice, she has to drink it. If you don't want it, you have no choice, you have to drink it. These kids want it, it's different. My kids grew up in this town at 22 and 21, they've had one cavity, and that was during the pandemic when they couldn't go get their teeth cleaned. We've got toothpaste, we got fluoride treatment, we got fluoride drops, you go to the dentist, they poke the teeth with fluoride.
I don't think we're advocating that we immediately
Oh, I
move
understand
forward.
that, yeah.
I mean, I understand where you're
This
coming from,
is-
Dave, but I think
this
in order to make an
before.
informed decision,
Oh, I
one of the things we need to understand
Yeah.
is sort of the
I think
infrastructure.
once we get the consultant and figure out what the costs are and what the pros and cons that all of it, and kind of look at it together and see where
It's there's two definitely groups out there when it came up before, and it was quite contentious. It was, you know, it mimicked Dale Street versus Wheelock.
I can't imagine anything mimicking that.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll take your word.
it's, yeah. There's definitely two camps on this that.
So, and I think a debate is probably necessary.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're there yet, because I wouldn't even
Well,
advocate we move forward until I have more information.
No, I think that's the first step, is to get the information on there.
Can I ask a question to Melissa at this point about it? Because it's similar to
You
that.
should
I'm not
introduce
sure.
yourself, by the way.
Yeah, I'm Dave Pucci. I'm on 38 Charlesdale Road, so I'm here today for this board meeting. So just as a break point, is the fluoridation more for children up to a certain age when, you know, adults start to use fluoridated toothpaste and stuff on a regular basis? Or is there not really an age cutoff for, you know, where the fluoride helps the general population's health, I guess?
I think that's a very interesting question and I appreciate it. I think it's most important for children whose teeth have yet to erupt, because that's when the bone is forming. However, because teeth are constantly reconstructing themselves, essentially, it's good to have fluoride in the water continuously. And I think I'm hearing that there's a lot of fear because we don't currently have it in the water. So there's one of those things where without researching, you just say, I'd rather just not add anything, but I think it really does warrant more investigation. Just to back up for one more second, as far as the investigational process, I think one of the things that we found out moving forward after this PowerPoint was done is we do need to have someone come in and do an official tally of what our fluoride is currently. So that would be step number one, is getting someone to test. I think the last time that I pulled those facts were from like 2014, perhaps.
Well, we can add that to our the things that, the menu that we ask them to test for when we do water quality testing.
Yeah,
That's, yeah.
They
And
could
that's-
just pull that.
I expect EPG would definitely be the first thing they'd say is before we can move forward on figuring out what you
Right.
need, we
Yeah.
have to know what you have.
It's just
You need to know what you have.
It's a box to check off when we send samples out. So we don't need to hire a company to be a consultant to have us figure out how to pull water out, where we just have to add that to the menu of items of services that the current laboratories test for.
Yeah, I don't think it's
Yeah.
a question that hasn't been asked yet.
All right. So Mo, you should probably begin to operationalize that.
I think that's do annual secondary survey, and I think Florida is under that.
Yeah.
Check.
I'll look at that survey to see if it's in there.
Okay.
I just wanted to echo also the Board for Water and Sewage. The same for the Board of Health. I think at this point, you know, we're aware that there are different views on water fluoridation, and what we're doing now is making sure we collect the latest in terms of science and so forth of pros and cons, and also to understand, you know, the part of the due diligence is also understanding the logistics and the cost, of such a decision, and I think that we would undoubtedly have quite a bit of public input to take into consideration as part of this process.
Can we put a date out there for EPG to respond with the feasibility study?
What do you think is achievable?
They're working on right now. They have different people for that anyway, so I think
For our January
we get
meeting?
something by the end of the year.
So we'll look to have something for our January meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
That is part of our annual testing. Right? The sanitary-
They recommended do an annual, they didn't do it last year, pandemic stuff, so.
so this is point source testing, not
Yeah.
collection point testing, right?
Right.
So each well.
Each well,
Okay,
correct.
okay.
If I can get it sooner, I'll let you know. Get information from them.
Okay, so we'll cover this topic in the January 2022 meeting. We get the study, we'll forward it out to Board of Health. We'll get that done.
Thank you.
I'll make sure you guys are part of the agenda. Okay. Anything else on that? No,
I don't think so.
I think we covered everything else that was under this line item with the Board of Health. The only, one other thing I wanted to mention that I, especially with when we were coming together on discussing the stormwater management for, when the issue came up for the school that was proposed to be built over at Wheelock. I wanted to make sure that, the Board of Health didn't feel like they're all out there alone on the stormwater management thing. If we can provide some, background or testimonials or research as you move forward with, gathering the information that you need to do what you need to do on stormwater management for the Board of Health. And also it's all important to, that we all recognize that that Mo actually has the purview and actually in promulgating laws and rules for stormwater management, and he sort of owns the monitoring and the actualization of plans that are done. So as we all weigh in on opinions as boards and committees, at the end of the day, Mo is really responsible for making sure it gets done. So he, is also a resource. As you reflect on stormwater management issues, you should think about us, think about Mo, and to help you out. We just don't want you to feel like you're out there all by yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I think with stormwater, it's always been felt like a little bit of an oddball item to be in the Board of Health's purview. Is sort of separate from a lot of the stuff we deal with normally on a more regular basis around, food safety or infectious diseases. But and we rely pretty heavily in the past have relied pretty heavily on consultants to, review construction applications and so forth. And we rely pretty heavily honestly on the what the expert gives us back. And as I understand it, right now the town is with Sarah Raposa and Christine and Nick, I might be involved there too, is trying to do some work to see if there's some streamlining or some of the process around stormwater regulations, or some harmonization that might need to be done across different committees and boards that have some jurisdiction over stormwater to simplify that process.
I think that would be a good thing to occur, because the bylaws that were put into place in 2017 that gave the DPW director the certain authorities, just want to make sure that doesn't, overstep, or that there's some harmonization between the roles and responsibilities of the different groups.
And what we
So-
did this past town meeting in the spring, we revised the town bylaws to include all the different entities that are involved with stormwater to have some sort of authority in their own meetings to decide on certain aspects of stormwater. So it's not all just the DPW director saying, because, you guys do stormwater management through the plans, the planning department does, planning and zoning does the same, and conservation's involved in DPW. So all facets of stormwater in the purview that is at their committee meetings has the authority to decide on that particular, whatever issues that come up in their particular area. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Any other items for the Board of Health?
I see a question there in the Q&A. I didn't know if that was for us about filtration from a home system.
Would a home filtration system, for example, reverse osmosis and carbon filter remove fluoride if people had objections to it?
In my experience, reverse osmosis would. Yeah. Activated carbon, no, but a lot of times you could activated carbon before reverse osmosis. You want water really clean and clear, and also no chlorine before it goes into reverse osmosis, because chlorine will, even trace amounts will, over a couple of weeks will take away that filtration layer that's in reverse osmosis. So, okay. Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay. All right, number 4, Mo, you're up. I guess let's cover the filtration project.
So the filtration project is moving right along. They are looking at, they submitted their first pay rec. It's a pencil pay rec that has to go through a little more. They're looking like to get the official one today and the signed one for tomorrow for the planning and building committee meeting tomorrow night. So as soon as I get it from them, I will send it over to you guys to review. As far as the,
How is this different than what was put forward to the planning committee earlier?
that was just the engineering invoices. This is actually the pay rec from the consultant, the contractor that's doing the job.
Oh, okay.
So this
Okay.
could be in the area close to maybe $1 million of the project, because they haven't had anything submitted yet.
Right.
So it could be substantial, the first one.
Do we have a role in the approval of that?
Well, it's gonna be under my signature as far as the DPW. What I had planned on and what we had talked about was to send it to you prior to see if you had any comments or issues with the pay rec, that I would not sign off on it until you guys were satisfied as well. But the building committee has the authority to pass that. So I don't know how.
Wouldn't we want to have the OPM weigh in and whether
They are-
this is
I'm
appropriate?
assuming
The
they are.
OPM and everybody's putting a review on.
I'm assuming that's why the pencil copy was
Correct.
submitted, so that everybody
So
could
they
have a
have
go at it.
OPM has it and EPG has it.
Right.
So they're making corrections, initial corrections, so that they have to come back with something that's more complete.
Okay, because I would rather act on the recommendations of the OPM, because
Yep.
that's why they're in place.
But I wanted to send it to you guys
because the terms and conditions and the payment terms and of all
Yeah,
of them and
all
the subs and all
details,
that,
yeah.
that's
Yeah, that's-
right.
I don't want to be responsible for that, not having the knowledge of it. Haven't been into the depths of the contract, so.
So at this point, the backwash waste tank walls at the location, part of the foundation, has been poured with the rebar and everything. There's some pictures here that I can pass around to you guys that show that.
Is there a picture of me jumping the fence looking at this stuff?
You might be back there. They've also put the binder course pavement down to the access road to connect the two wells together, well 3 and well 4, as well as to access to the site. So these show the initial binder course that's been.
So this isn't, I think that, I was there on Saturday and I think this is a little problematic
What's that?
where you've got the fence here and then you've got, this orange fencing here. Saturday morning, people are walking this way and then they're jumping the fence, walking here so that they can get on the road that's over here. So there's no,
Well, there's supposed to be restricted access for right now.
no, I'm just saying like,
No.
that's that. But then on Saturday morning, it's a steeplechase with people and their dogs going over it. So, well, because they can see over here that it's wide open. So they're coming down the road here. And so,
I think at the last meeting we had, it was discussed maybe putting additional fencing up.
well,
Around.
yeah, if you're trying to create more fencing to keep them out, that's one thing. Or if there's another way to accommodate it, that might be another.
The
Because-
site itself is fenced off. This is just to give access to the contractors that are coming in for delivery, for the contractors moving it out with the cement trucks and everything, so that, during construction time, they have to have some sort of area for them to come in and out. We're trying to protect the public. I know they want to be there and see what's going on and walk the dogs and everything still, but with the selectmen, they give us the access restriction until the end of the year.
Yeah, I get it. All I know is what I saw.
Yeah, I
And
mean-
they're walking their dogs down and they can just walk around the side of the fence. Then when they get penned in, they just jump just over there for about 30 feet and then they're free and
We
clear,
just
open on the
can't
other
change
side.
the
so.
Behavior of everyone and, when you see the
Well,
orange fence.
Maybe there's a way to change the way it's fenced so that you motivate people in the right direction instead of letting them get lost in the wrong direction.
Well, whether it's gonna work or not, but that was discussed doing some maybe additional fencing
Right.
towards the railroad track. Is that what we're talking about?
Or a simple sign that just says this way for dog walkers and just, if we need to have a break in the fence at a spot where people are gonna go through anyways, and it's safer to have them go through there than it is to have them go around something and try to crawl over
We'll
stuff.
talk to the
Then
we'll
that
talk
might
to
be
the
easier.
engineers, the OPM, and see if they can't tighten it up a little bit with the contract.
Especially when they get the
It's either-
construction of the
it's
building
between the-
itself.
yeah. Tightening or accommodating
Yeah.
the what would be the reasonable.
We're gonna
flow
try to
of it.
open up
Yeah.
the access as soon as we can, but it has to be confined to the actual plant area. They're still working on the
Yeah, I think,
outskirts.
I think we don't want to push anybody into an area where there's a hazard, obviously. But if people are going through there anyways to get their dog walked, and there's a way that we can shepherd them through there in a safe manner where they're not having to hop over fences and they're not wandering into a place that is kind of dangerous, it seems to me that's to the good. Just saying we can't sort of fix it, all you're doing is sort of waiting for somebody to actually do something and get themselves hurt.
And especially on a Saturday, because that's when you're,
Yeah.
that's when you say, okay, Friday night, that fence line, instead of being right at that road edge, it's in 3 to 4 feet from the road. So it's don't walk here, but at least they know that, yes, you can walk this 4-foot stretch,
Yeah.
with your dog along that new road to get to the other side, to get to where the tracks are.
I mentioned putting a sign right at the green gate, because there is a path along the soccer fields. And I mentioned if you put some signage there, like I said, walking path this way. So they wouldn't even have to walk down the road to access it.
Yeah, just showing them where to go.
Show them where to go, exactly.
You're not gonna cure all the stupid that's out there. If somebody wants to go the wrong way, they're gonna sort of go ahead and go the wrong way. But if you could direct people, at least most of them will know, here's the safe route for me to take, and it's not out of my way. Then.
Right.
We expected to see a change order request about 2 months ago. Did that ever come out?
That just came out last, actually, the middle of last week, the end of last week, I got it right here. So with that being said, I think the recommendation, if you guys agree, would be, as the school was not voted in, that there's no need for that change on the.
So this is for a scope of work, for work that actually hasn't been done.
Correct.
Okay. And it was to
So to
accommodate, to better accommodate the use of the area that might have been used for that school.
Correct.
So we're gonna reroute some
We're
piping.
gonna reroute it, and if you look at the cost, it would be about a $90,000 hit, which we really didn't want to increase our project costs. With the school not going, they got turned down, we can go back to the original plan of putting it in the access road and bring it straight up from where it is, straight back from where it is right now at the end of it. So this way that change order would not be, that was a big issue, is trying to get the change order from the contractor. It took them a long time to put that together. And
Yeah, like 2 months.
and the OPM and engineering, environmental partners were on them constantly. But administration is not their best, task at the moment. So what I would suggest is that we go back to the original plan and we'll process any more money, but finish the.
So just to table this proposal.
Correct. Again, that was an contingent to what was gonna happen with the school project.
And if some point in the future, whether it's the school or some other
The school
thing,
would have to change it over if they needed to.
yeah, so that would be a cost that would be part of ultimately be paid for by the rate base, by the
The design engineers.
exactly, and not the rate payers of the water enterprise fund.
And they could redesigned to accommodate where we have our stuff. Right? So,
What do you think of that?
Tend to agree. I don't see a need for us to spend $90,000 on something that it's not clear
90.
that we even need.
90.
So is it
Oh, okay. I thought you said 9.
less tempting? That would my wallet.
So we agreed to table the change order. And not move forward.
Just in terms of the process on the school building committee are meeting on Wednesday. They posted a meeting for Wednesday, and the selectmen have it on their agenda to discuss tonight as well. So I don't know what the discussion will be, but there might be more clarity after the meeting tonight and then the meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, which is why I think tabling the change order is the right
Tabling it?
description. We're not,
Okay,
I don't think we say it's rejected or throw it away. I think we table it. And we
Okay,
let
so
it-
we'll table
we
it
just
for
let
now.
it sit for now and don't act on it. If we get to the point where Bisco has to know, then I think sort of double check, but I don't know when that is. I don't know if they need to know within a week or if they need to know within
So
3 months.
what I'll
but-
do is I'll send you both an email and you can respond separately if you have any issues. If we were to put a letter out to them to proceed as what was originally done in the future, instead of, do we have to meet again? That's what I'm saying.
no, at this point, they need to.
What's the
proceed.
validity period on that?
It's probably gonna be 30 or 60 days. I would think it'd be 30 days. I don't think that's wrong, but usually they're 30 or 60 days.
I mean, if it turned, whether the water payer should be paying for an accommodation to the school project is one thing that's part of this. It's embedded in this.
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, I mean, at
Yeah.
the end of the day, a $90,000 change order
Yeah.
to get it right now
Right.
and not mess with it later.
It's in the town's interest right now.
Just
but
makes
if
sense.
it's- Yeah.
But so I guess what I was getting at is we got a couple of meetings coming up where ostensibly some decisions are going to be made that we're going to try to push ahead with the Wheelock site still with changes,
Right.
or we're going to shift gears and walk away from it, at least for now. If the answer is we're going to shift gears and walk away from it for now, then I don't think we need to spend any more time talking about that change order. But if the answer is we're still gonna look at it in a serious way.
Right.
Then maybe we hang on to that change order for a little while and see where we end up.
Do they have, when do they need to know?
They need to know soon because they're trying to get.
What does
this
soon
in-
mean?
Well, like.
With someone who took 2 months to get
No,
this to
no,
us,
no,
doesn't tell me
I
it's
totally
soon.
understand, but if you look at it, the construction wise, trying to get it in before the first snow.
I don't think we hold that up. If they get to a point where it's now or never, then they just proceed with the original plan. That's my,
Yeah, so the default is to proceed with the original plan unless they hear from us otherwise.
Okay, I just wanted to.
we'll
wait till
hold on to the
January
option
before-
as long as we can hold on to the
Right.
option, but let's not
We'll find out
incur
what
cost or
the-
schedule on that.
what the selectmen's views are tonight in the. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Mhm.
Um,
PFAS testing.
yeah, we covered that. It seems, do we have a backlog of samples?
No, that was October, so we're in November.
We just posted
Just
September and
posted.
October in the last week and a half.
And
They
it's
came
just
back.
been November's Monday because well,
Okay.
3 was
So it's coming quicker.
definitely coming.
Okay, cool. Okay. I have to go to
Yeah,
the
we're much
website.
happier now than we were, waiting, 2 months for that.
September's took forever, October's got back within a couple of weeks.
Can I go backwards and ask a quick question about the force main relocation?
Yeah.
And this is me not having a good handle on the alignment of the sites and where everything is, but I know that up at Wheelock, even if we don't put the new school in there, there's still a fair amount of stormwater management system upgrades that are gonna be required to be installed.
Right.
Will those updates and changes be affected by the location of force main?
They shouldn't be, because if you think about where that access road is,
Mhm.
if nothing's being built, if that access road is existing. and
It's
that's
far
where-
enough off that we're not
And
gonna,
that's where we're putting it parallel with the existing access road in the shoulder.
okay.
So it's not going in the access road, it's not going anywhere that's gonna be affected with the stormwater if they do improvements to the existing election.
Okay, which my understanding was that's gonna have to,
That's
Be its
mostly
own
gonna
separate
be-
agenda
That's gonna
item now,
mostly be
so.
up front where that sewer line is already bypassed that area.
thank you.
And to flip backwards, Dave, we're up, our test data is as for the October test or the November samples?
That latest one was for the October sample.
Okay.
Like I said, I just did
Okay.
November's yesterday, because well 3, they were developing it. you
Okay,
know,
cool.
Down there,
Yep.
and I was able to run the well to get a
Okay.
sample out of it, so.
Yeah, so the last one was October.
How can we test individually for well 1 and individually for well 2?
The initial testing, we did do it individually for 1 and 2, when we did that first round. And once they determined it was in there, then they just said just to,
Because it's so
combined.
So the state,
The state-
DEP said that
Yes,
testing for 1 and 2 was the right way of doing it.
correct.
Yep, the blended, yes.
I mean, not that we couldn't go back at some point and do each individual well.
I guess the presumption is they're pulling from the same aquifer, so,
Pulling from the same area too, I mean.
Well, they're right next to each other.
That's-
Yeah.
They're right.
Yeah.
so,
The only difference is if the wells are actually outputting differently. And so if one is contributing more than the other,
Mhm.
and there actually is a difference between
which
the
is the
two.
case, yeah.
Yeah,
At some point, we may go back to that, like I said, because 2 does produce more than 1. And if I would think if the thing started to elevate, that we could do some manipulation and have 1 pump more than 2, so a little less. But like I said, I think that would be in the scope of EGP's, looking at. But see, the rate started to increase. So, to find out which is exactly
Yep.
well.
Yep.
But remember, 2 probably was a little higher than 1, so if we increase pumping more with 1 and 2, you'll get that overall level down.
Just-
yeah, that's sort of where I was going with
Right.
this, is to understanding what's the, what, from a point source perspective.
Right.
I personally would like to have 1 and separate data for 2. That's what I would like.
They were within 1 point of each other.
No, I don't remember exactly what they were.
Just to give you a reference, so well 2 is at the line, the Millis line. Well 1 is the one further into Medfield. So you would think that one would be the first one to see, but it's not.
Well, Millis has a big project to remove PFAS.
Yes.
Yeah.
They had to shut their wells down. I have a meeting with all the directors in the area. They're putting money towards that right now.
So Millis is bringing us down, is what you're saying.
Correct.
All
Absolutely.
I can know that.
Anybody on there from Millis?
right. Next item is to review the final bond costs. Nick, can you provide some commentary for just how everything shook out with the
Sure.
bond?
So the town sold the bonds in September 15th. Obviously, we've been lucky and even persistent to this day, a pretty low interest rate environment. The headline interest rate that you would have seen was the 1.46 number. But once you get down to boiling out what our annual payments are, it's a little bit different based on coupon payments and the premium. The winning bond, the winning purchaser provided the town with a premium, so that enabled us to lower our total borrowing for several of our capital items as well as the main water treatment plant. So we borrowed 11.5 million, but our principal that we have to pay back is only 10.38 million because we applied a bunch of people that we received. They applied premium upfront to reduce some of their costs later.
Can you see those figures again?
We were proceeding to issue $11.5 million for the water treatment plant project. We received a significant premium of about, I think it was about 1.4 million. Most of it was applied to the 11.5 that we're going to borrow for the treatment plant, which brings our principal payments that we owe over 20 years down to 10.38 million. And then some of the premium was applied to some of the other capital projects that we were moving forward with. So 20 years on the bond at 10.3 million. We also have the Mount Nebo Tower to $105,000 over 10 years.
Okay, and I noticed also in the principal payment, it almost looked like there was a synthetic bond, that there were actually 3 different tiers of principal payment. The last 5 years were different than years 6 through 15.
Yeah, that was structured by the financial advisor and the winning bidder.
Is it
on how
front,
those-
because
that's
it seems to front load it more than we anticipated in the rate model.
Agreed.
That's where I said, whoa.
Yep.
Well, that was sort of my whoa when I called you yesterday.
Yes. No, so that's the way that it was structured. And for more commentary that I would have to defer to Georgia, because she
Okay.
is more attuned as to how that shakes
Yeah,
out.
so it's a little wiggly
specifically.
in the front years for both the, okay, for the other members here, we rehabilitated the Mount Nebo tanks, which included painting. We did some work on the internals. There's some upgrades to safety for safety access. And that was I don't know, we thought it was gonna be a $700,000 project. It turned out to be closer to 4. So instead of capitalizing and getting a bond and adding it to some other borrowing, we got a short-term, almost a line of credit, so to speak, but then, for us to pay for the contractor, but now to really capitalize it, we brought that expense or that capital project for the bond issuer to look at. And so we sort of synthetically created a couple of different sort of tranches of the bond. So when you look at the capital payment for what we went up for, it is not like a smooth payment because we blended a couple of things into it. One being the Mount Nebo, but also the type of bond that was given to us that on the tail end, it's a little bit bowed out, a little bit more. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Well, it's bowed higher in the beginning, much more. And then also in the tail in the last 5 years, it falls down. Tails off.
the coupon payments are higher at the front end, so that means your total payment is higher at the front end, but it falls off much more quickly. So the first couple of years, I think that our payments will be higher than anticipated in the rate setting. But once we get through those first couple of years, it's lower. So it balances out over the long term, but it just puts a little pressure up front.
It might pull a fun balance down a little more than initially anticipated,
Correct.
but should still recover.
Over the long term, once we push past those first 2 years.
Thank you. I'm impressed with the reduction in principal. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're getting $1 million back. That's impressive.
Yeah, and we were trying to figure out how best to apply it because we had a lot of smaller capital projects. That's kind of silly to carry, but at the same time, it was the treatment plant that was the bulk of the borrowing, so it felt it was proper to apply the premium, just about all of it to this project. Of course.
Okay, cool. Next item is a discussion on the revenue commitments and a variance analysis. So what is this? This is a sort of a snapshot of when we put the rates together. We have a model, we try to anticipate, we look at our, go from the water and the wastewater treatment, the sewage operations, is to, well, basically, we've got to cover costs. And so this outlook here is to look at the billing period that closed in October. And that's what we call commitments. So those are like basically your account receivables and an accounting function. And since that billing period is a much larger contributor, we want to see, like, based on the water curtailment that we might have had, but also the peak usage rates, how's this looking from a revenue perspective? You can see I drew a line here above 21. We had a small variance, a positive variance at the end of the fiscal year 21 of approximately $27,000. So what that shows is that we did a very good job in anticipating what the revenue would be, and that's good. When you look at fiscal 2022, you'll see that in the October billing, it's about 12% higher than the previous year. And I have a placeholder here for April of around 800,000. I just wrote that in there for 800,000. And that was just to sort of look at, basically, if we use what we have for the billing period of October, add that to an approximation of April, and what does that total commitment look like? So the estimated total commitment would be about 2.8 million. Our revenue model that we have for fiscal 2022 is 2.87. So right now we're showing a negative variance of about $70,000. But that doesn't take into account a whole bunch of other fees that we expect to come in that we're budgeting around 210,000. Connection fees, lien fees, interest fees, and things like that. So what that means is that although we're showing a negative variance of around 70,000, to me, it looks like that would be more than offset by the other fees that we expect to come in throughout the year.
Frankly, a $70,000 negative variance feels, maybe it's not a bullseye, but it's that one circle right outside the bullseye.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy to put that out there.
Right. Exactly. And so, so the chart you see on the right, you can see how this tracked for 19, 20, and 21, that we did a pretty good. The hard part is that, we don't know how much water we're going to sell. We don't know what the demand's going to be like. The weather patterns on one hand would increase demand if it becomes dry, but then if we end up regionally, we have to go through, the different tiers of water management and ask people to curtail their use, then that is the offset. So the sweet spot, in a way, from a maximizing revenue perspective, is for it to be dry, but not too dry, right? So last year we had to go into water curtailment, tier 3 or tier 4, the earliest that I can ever remember.
Yeah, very early.
Yeah, it was
April.
Yeah, it was kind of bananas. Yeah. So it was, but then we ended up relaxing it because it rained a lot. So anyhow, we have a very high fixed cost basis, like something like 97% of the budget are fixed costs. So if we can't save our way making the budget, because even if we shut it down, we'd have, 97% of our costs being fixed. Electricity is only around, for an operating budget of $3 million. Electricity is less than 200,000, or it's around 200,000. So it's like 8%. So even if we sort of pumped no water, you're only sort of saving 8%. That doesn't offset that. From the sewage side, similarly, you can see the commitment being about from that just came out was 1.1 million to 214. And I put a placeholder there of 725,000. And so the commitment is about 1.9. Our rate model is about 2.1. So that negative variance is 167, but I'm anticipating other fees to basically offset it almost exactly at 166,000 change. So that seems like it's tracking fairly well to that. So as a board, we have a fiduciary responsibility. And this is our first, look at how things, are going, based on what we planned for when we set the rates, and they were put into effect. And then, looking backwards to see, where the revenue is that's going to come in to offset the costs throughout the year.
Can I add 2 comments?
Yeah.
One is, when you look at the year-over-year differences, a big chunk of that is rate increases, not change in actual volume, right? We increased rates by somewhere in the neighborhood of those percentages. So
Yeah.
It's about increasing the rate more so than, we didn't use 12% more water. Nowhere near it. In fact, we're under looking at.
Yeah, I'm going to share some pumping data with you. The other thing I started to just look at, you see on the sewage side, is this, what I call the October sewer to water revenue ratio. And I just find it interesting that the revenue that's coming in for sewerage is becoming lower as a ratio to people's bills. So as an aggregate, this is a way like where the customer bills are. If they have both water and sewer, that the contribution of sewer to their bill is, only 40%, whereas before that it was a higher percentage. We have customers who have just sewer. We have customers who have just water. A vast majority actually are both. Any other questions on this? I feel pretty good about this data. We just started doing this variance analysis, what, a year, 2 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
So I was having.
Yeah. Well, I think when we get our updated and improved metering and SCADA system fully installed, we won't have to wait for the commitments every 6 months. We'll actually be able to see volume pumped on a monthly basis, which will be great to get a better sense of where we're at.
Yep. All right. While we're here, I'm gonna skip over. Let's see the variance. Let me do this. Let's skip over to the next one because I'm doing handouts and we cover this material. So this is a chart of all the water that's pumped from all of the wells, and we have an annual maximum average, which is about 1.5 million gallons. So you add up all the water that we pump out of the wells over the whole year and divide it by 365. That has to, our permit is supposed to be less than 1.52, I think it is. So this fanning of different lines shows on a cumulative basis how much water is being pumped, and the things that should pop out at you is that from the earlier years of this chart, 13, 14, and 15, we were pumping a lot of water. We had a lot of water use, and it turns out a lot of that water is being lost. So that's in the it's called unaccounted for water, UAW. We also had some dry periods too. So people were asking for more water, but the system was trying to deliver more water. And I think the more that the system was trying to deliver more water, it was wasting more water at the same time. So here we are in 2021 and how we're tracking. We're tracking pretty close to the last couple of years, 18, 19, and 20. So there's nothing that jumps out at me really of any concern, especially on a financial basis. As we just did the variance analysis, we look good on a revenue basis. We're bringing in the revenue that we expect, which is good. Now, these other years, we might have thought that as well, but we were just we were just pumping a lot of water at the time. So this number, this 1.5, is one of the many metrics that are used to measure the efficiency of the water system. There's something called the annual statistics report, the ASR, that the town has to fill out and all towns have to fill out. It's like 70 pages long, but there are some key metrics that are within that. I could send them out to you, or there's a website for them. But there are certain ones that were measured on, the amount of water that's used per capita, the unaccounted for losses. There's a variety of other ones that, as an aggregate, the DEP has targets for percentages. And then on top of that, we actually have restrictions based on what our infrastructure is permitted to operate as individual wells, as wells within a certain basin, as well as all of the wells as a complete aggregate of what across all water basins. How are we doing over there?
Doing great. Thanks for asking. I'm a little worried about you running out of colors.
Yeah, but there are 50 shades of gray, right? Maybe that was wrong. Right. All right. So an item came up where I believe, was it the selectman was asking us to look at reducing the amount of free cash that we carry in the enterprise fund.
No, that is sorry. Interpretation is different. So
Okay,
what they did was they
Who's
adopted
they?
new financial policies. The board of selectmen adopted new financial policies,
okay,
and typically what you find in most communities is that the overall town financial policies will include a reference and a minimum for any enterprise funds they have. And that's across the board for all the enterprise funds, not just water and sewer. And so what the selectmen did was they inserted, a reference that the water and sewer enterprise funds have their own free cash balances. It's used for capital to, mitigate longer term risk, and that their policies say that shall be a minimum of 20%. So they're just setting a floor and acknowledging
floor,
that,
not a ceiling.
a floor.
Oh, that was a
Yes.
ceiling.
No, and that's why it wasn't, it's not a big change.
Okay,
And it's not really, I wouldn't view it as a change, but just more they wanted to incorporate kind of best practice across communities. So they set a floor of 20%. You have historically been
20% of
of the
your
operating budget.
the operating budget.
Right.
Yeah, so the operating budget for water is around $3 million, right? So that would be 600,000 as a floor. And where we have a target, we've been using $1 million for that. So this is basically what is basically call it a free cash balance. So it's we carry a cash balance for a couple of reasons. One is, well, our revenues are unknown, although they are reasonably predictable. If for some reason we can't sell water, we need to have a cash balance to pay our bondholders and things like that. Second is that we carry this cash balance is something that we increase in time sometimes because we basically are, quote, saving money for capital projects that we will pay out of this free cash balance instead of getting a loan. So it's a way of sort of increasing the balance. And if we're going to put in, we're going to change the carbon steel water mains in a street that are going to be 800,000, we want to, build up to that level so that when the project is we're ready to do it, that the money's there. So this free cash balance is a way for us, sort of a savings plan for future investments. When something gets to be pretty big, then we'll go for a debt issuance. something greater than $2 million would probably start to get our interest in going to the debt markets. Short of that, it becomes sort of not easy to get good rates below that. So, and also some of our projects can be phased. So, if it's a water main project, we can phase certain ones so that if it's a several $1 million project, that we don't have to do it all at the same fiscal year. So the way to phase that way we can absorb it, we can raise money for it, and also we don't have to go to capital markets for bond for that.
The only other piece I should mention about the financial policy is, and this is something I meant to ask, was whether that policy of the $1 million target is something that's formalized and written down. And if not, maybe that's something we should
Okay.
look at doing, just because it's been the past practice. It's been the goal that everybody talks about, but if it's not memorialized anywhere, maybe that's something we should.
No,
incorporate.
that's a fair question. And I think also we might want to look at water differently than sewerage because of our the amount of debt that we have for water. We have to think about the cash management of something that, well, we've got.
Less flexibility
Yeah, exactly.
with the account.
Thoughts?
There's a whole bunch of things that we do that it's not really recorded and not on it. I'm wondering where that would be written down. Where would we write that down?
So we have financial manuals in other departments, and that's something that we could start to
Would this
build
be,
out if
yeah.
you're interested in it. And
Should we call a meeting the enterprise fund committee?
I think if you feel, if you want to have that bigger picture discussion about anything else that
It would
they
just,
want
I
to
mean,
start.
the
pulling
enterprise
together.
fund, it pulls the town members
Right.
into that. So
Financial
it brings,
right.
it brings Joy, brings Christine, and we, therefore, it's harmonized between both the board and the town.
Yeah, well, and I guess, and what I'm thinking is that it seems to create a policy that has a line. We will endeavor to keep a $1 million balance on our.
One sentence. Let's see.
That's the policy.
Right.
You know,
We can do that right
all
now
we
if
do.
you want.
I have a blank sheet of paper. up there. Shouldn't we maybe try to formalize, here's the rate setting process?
Sure.
Are there other, and I'm spitballing here because I haven't thought about it, but there's probably at least a dozen different things that we do over the course of a year because that's how we do it. And I don't think we're doing it wrong. I think we're doing it as right as we know how. But if we're gonna formalize a couple of things, let's get
Sure.
those all written out into
Yeah,
one spot.
so what, yeah,
We don't have the document.
yeah, you're right. So what we do have is the draft strategic plan. What we don't have is a operating plan.
As a board.
Yeah.
As opposed to
Yeah.
your operating plans.
Right,
Which I
right,
don't want to get in the middle of.
Which is not rules and regulations.
right, right. So, yeah, so I remember putting this together. We talked about this maybe 8 or 10 months ago. There was like a list of things. We said, oh, yeah, we should put that into a rhythm.
Yeah, Randy dropped the ball on that.
There you go.
Our ex-board member who left, who moved away. That's right. Ouch.
Well,
Right.
well played. Well played. I can't wait to leave this board. Yeah, I'll be stepping on it momentarily. Yeah.
All right. So what do you want to come to that meeting next month?
Yeah,
You get your thoughts
Next-
together. Let's
next
get the
month
things,
we'll-
how you want to run this.
we'll create a subcommittee. I think it's funny to have a subcommittee. Yeah, let's make that an agenda for our next meeting. Put that on the agenda.
Okay,
Maybe we carve out half an hour to talk through what we think the contents, what we think ought
Yeah.
to be in a operating plan
right.
and start trying to formulate something. And Nick, if you've got examples from
Sure.
elsewhere that you wouldn't mind providing, that would be
Yeah.
helpful to me.
That would
I
be,
can certainly
we want to be harmonious with that.
Certainly.
You're just like we have an agenda policy. If something's going to come into this and people have materials, it has to be submitted to us It's like 3 business days prior to the meeting. And that actually, I just piggybacked on the Board of Selectmen. You know, they have a policy that's sort of similar to that, so. Love templates, love
Yes. No,
templates.
we did. I agree,
Yeah.
something, right?
Okay, covered that, covered that. I think we're about done. Is there any new matters? Anything? Points of interest, any questions? Any questions there?
Yes.
Yeah, I work laser for the first time in 20 months. Come on.
Christine McHugh-Potts asked about a 604B grant that is under Mo's purview in the highway department. So Mo, Chris, we can circle back with you on that separately if you want to send me and Mo an email, but we have your comment here. We have a grant from Mass DEP for looking at stormwater and municipal properties. So related to the stormwater discussion, but something Mo's working on separately with the 2 watershed
I can
associations.
respond back to Christine on the email or something.
Okay.
All right,
No
cool.
idea what that is. That's good.
Otherwise, that is it.
Okay,
All right. May I make a motion?
I love a motion.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye.